When I think of my patients, they all seek their own existence and to assure their existence against that complete atomization into nothingness or into meaninglessness. Man cannot stand a meaningless life. When I think of my patients.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another WEBSTER Report. Me and Alex were just debating how well things seem to be going, so we're not going to expand on that. That video froze a little bit, but after last week's escapades, it's more than we can be worried about, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, a lot more.
Especially, I mean, you've already shocked me, mate, because you actually knew what something had gone on in the world. So I'm interested. Let's see. That's what I was just going to say. I'm setting you up now because this is a first. You're on a roll, mate. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, well, you know, at first when we started doing the show, we were talking consistently because we'd done the odd one here and there. And you'd done obviously for a long time. But, you know, this like double act sort of thing, we probably kicked in August, September 2024, something like that, probably August, late August. So there's been quite a few changes in it. First, August 2024, September, October, November, December, January, about 17 months ago now, I was in a different place. I mean, we're all, at our best, hopefully we're always growing and changing and developing. You don't want to stand still. But some changes are more significant than others. And at the time, I was still looking at events in the world very avidly. And particularly because we just had that election of Uncle Keith Starmer. And, you know, I believe from the beginning that he had resonances with the beast from the land in Revelation 13. And nothing's happened since to change my mind. And there isn't necessarily just one person. Many people can be like expressions of the archetype, and he certainly fits. He certainly fits. But at that time, I suppose I was still looking at some of the political landscape. Reform had just started to get a bit of traction, but it wasn't until Uncle Keith started to really, you know, drop the proverbial bollock or two that reform got even more traction. But apart from that type of issue, the domestic political scene in this country, I started to move more and more towards the theological side of stuff. And I think I'd had a bellyful. I'd seen enough of what was going on in the world, and it was theatre. And it was so difficult not, you know, to be able to see the wood for the trees. And I thought sometimes less is more, but definitely you can't help but notice, because everyone's got an opinion about what Trump's done in Venezuela, Maduro. In fact, earlier today I was Googling to see if there'd been any kind of reaction, official statement from Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping of China, two of the most significant players. And they've both been making lots of noise, but not made official statements. It's come through their embassies and everything. So it isn't just the leftist lunatics, the Green Party, your Bernie Sanders, the Mamdanis, who are all condemning it. You even get other international leaders condemning it, almost as if the states have gone rogue on some levels, totally rogue. And I must admit, when I saw Trump talking about it, that's for the first time I've ever really seen him like he was reading from a script that somebody else had written for him. It struck me like, usually you look at Trump and you think, this is a Trump agenda. Trump's got a very clear idea about what needs to be happening. Trump's got a very clear idea about what he feels needs to be put right, whether you agree with him or not. Like a bit like you say about Margaret Thatcher, this lady's not for turning. She's the Iron Lady. She's running this show. Since then, you've always had people in this country, no, they're just a puppet, they're a figurehead. Well, Trump was very much somebody you wouldn't see as a puppet, the exact opposite. And that's what people liked about him. He was not a yes man. He was a no-nonsense man with an opinion, whether you agree with him or not. And that was one of his strengths. But when I see him almost reading his script about what they've done in Venezuela, it just struck me. Yeah, this wasn't really top of Trump's list. And I got the feeling, not that he'd been nobbled, but that some other interests were now using him like a ventriloquist dummy. And I can't really say any more than that. It just looked like a stark contrast between the way I've always seen him And the way I saw him, like reading his lines, like it wasn't natural to him. So I'm not saying he's been nobbled or that he needed to be nobbled as such, but there's definitely a change in temperature about this Venezuela thing. It doesn't feel like the agenda has come specifically from him.
No, it looks like it. Well, when an agenda gets so far down the road, everybody can see the parts of the agenda that are exposed. So the people who are actually paying attention, well, you can't dissuade them. So he has to now just double down. Maybe he can't be as wisecracking, I don't know. And again, I'm not saying he's been nobbled either, because I'm part understanding that this is all meant to be part of a much bigger plan. It's a good time to bring in a couple of these videos if we can get them to work, because it's interesting what's being said in them.
We're going to rebuild the new structure. Billions of dollars that will be paid for by the oil companies to be reimbursed for what they put. And we're going to get the oil. It should be, as you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they had. But we'll do it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela, we're going to make sure the people that will flee Venezuela by this thug are also taken.
So the Americans are going to take care of the Venezuelans, Alex.
Yeah, they're very. I
It's
find the
like,
Americans
they've just moved into
very
another country. We're going to sort it for you. Oh, sorry.
No, it's very. I do find America to be very caring with its foreign policy. I've noticed down the years that they have been very caring in their interventions, looking after a lot of these poor countries. And of course, we know people have been cynical about that, like Chomsky originally, before he became complete, I don't know, an amoeba and got a bit too old and doddery. But he used to talk about American foreign policy, and it was always, from his perspective, draconian, particularly in Central America at the time, there was in Nicaragua and so on, and that they were always exporting some form of democracy or infrastructure. They were supporting American interests, but not since the Project for the New American Century, which was Paul Wolfowitz, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and there was this like moment where America was the sole power. China hadn't risen up yet. Since the Project for the New American Century, which came to culmination under 9/11, they've not had this full spectrum dominance idea, but this looks like some sort of resurrection of full spectrum dominance where they'd spotted a chance because of the weakness of their rivals to really try and have a hegemonic reign. But now China's coming up. Putin's no mug. So it seems like a strange time to resurrect that doctrine, but it does have a feel of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I've read that Putin, shall we say, will not stand by and allow this to be happening. But this is where we start to, well, we've already started to see it, but this is the wars and rumours of wars, isn't it? We don't actually know what's going on. We don't know what is actual theatre, because even when it's live, with live ammunition, live rockets, live drones, all that kind of caper, people are being killed, but it's all part of this agenda. So we've got that saying that he's, they've taken Maduro into cuffs. Maduro, only last week, I think it was saying that he wanted to work with Trump to get things going. It was all about inflation at one point. And it's the same thing now, what we're seeing with Iran. Apparently that was all about inflation and how it's being run and how it was being run into the ground. But you see women with the hijabs off, no facial coverings. This is like a nothing thing. And, the Americans are going to be very happy with that as well. The thing is, they've done this forever. 1954, the regime changed Iran. So we've seen these regime changes from this curring nation. Keir Starmer was the first one to say, we have nothing to do with it. But yeah, we helped the French do those strikes, but we didn't do that. You know, it's like, what are we watching here? What you know? Where does this go? So we go to this next video.
So he's not concerned about anything happening. So this is what your message is.
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. He does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, also, former President
So now we've got Trump threatening another country's leader. Is this normal? Have we ever seen this done before? And when it has been done, has it not been done by dictators?
It's interesting because when, you know, J.D. Vance, when, you know, you had Zelensky coming over, and then in quick succession, and then you had Starmer, and, you know, it didn't seem like it was exclusively a Trump policy at first, but, you know, a lot of people in this country, the Liberals, were saying, oh, they're interfering, telling us what to do. But in a way, a lot of Brits were happy that Trump and co were commenting on the degeneracy in this country. And on the back of Trump and co coming in with MAGA, it seemed as if he was saying, Luke, especially his position with respect to the United Nations and NATO, NATO, well, we're not going to keep funding you. So it seemed very much like America were drawing back. They were changing their relation to the rest of the world, being less aggressive, but diplomatically applying pressure to say, look, you're curbing free speech. So they seem to be talking more about values and the important values of the West that had always been historically prized. So it all seemed kind of innocuous. And then from nowhere, we've got this first move. I mean, obviously, when he does what he did that time with Iran, and he does other stuff, and he takes out a recognized terrorist, then people kind of go, oh, he shouldn't have done it. But they kind of go, yeah, well, we can't start saying it's wrong to take these people out because ultimately they create carnage. But this is a ruler of a sovereign nation. So regardless of what your motivations are, you suddenly started to act in a way completely opposite to the way you were doing. Now, I know he's been in office a year, but I often thought about Trump, that his second term, if you try and link, because there's many ways of linking the beast that was and is not, and is to come up out of the abyss and a fatal wound and so on. But breaking a covenant halfway through as well, you know, at the end of the day, the idea then is that you're one way in your first tenure, and then people remember you for that, and you campaign when you're out of office, and you're going to come back in, and you're going to put stuff right. But in those intervening 4 years when you've had senile Biden in and the extremism of the leftist lunatics, everyone's like champing at the bit. Yeah, come in and fix. Come in and fix everything. Come in, Messiah, and fix everything. And enough people have been saying that now, so that some people will go, all right, he's coming in now and he's fixing something. There was a problem with this. We can justify it on any pretext we want. We can move on to Colombia. And it doesn't need to be viewed as a crude resource grab. It doesn't need to be seen as the old foreign policy resurrected, a beast come back to life. It doesn't have to be seen as that, because it's in the name of justice. He's putting right all these problems as a military operation called Q, and they'll all live happily ever after. So we get all these different aspects of it now that could be configured together to have got people on board and go, oh no, everything Trump does is golden. So all he's doing is executing the next phase of the plan. He's now taking out the trash. These were a problem. So they're not going to read it in terms of just American interests in the old way they would have done under Wolfowitz and, you know, the 1990s project for the new American centuries. No, this is justified. Moral policeman, sorting out all this crap, putting the world right, telling Keir Starmer what to do. So, you know, they've moved, though, from dispensing advice and applying pressure to invading a country just like that and threatening another one. So I'd say that's a pretty big shift. and it might indicate something a little bit worrying. How many people, like, I'd never agree with a leftist in a sense, but if the leftist is right, on one occasion, like a clock is right twice a day, you know, even one that's stopped. So, you know, this is the thing. Maybe the leftists might be completely delusional, but right about Trump on this occasion. So maybe he has overstepped a mark. I really don't know what to make of it. I can't make my mind up. I don't think it's a good thing. I certainly don't think it's a good thing.
Well, like I said, it's interesting now because we see this unrest in Iran. We've seen this toppling of Venezuela. In between that, we've got France and the UK doing strikes on ISIS in Syria, yet the government of Syria are ISIS, and Muslims have bombed and killed Christians, Druze, and they've also bombed and killed Muslims. So with that melting pot that's going on over there, and, you know, bearing in mind, I brought up Jared Kushner before because he's married to Trump's daughter and he's been involved in all these things. So it brings me to the final video that I had. And, you know, give me your opinions on this one, pal.
Jared Kushner is a Zionist tool. He is an instrument of the deep state. It's a compromise, according to MI6 sources. He is owned. First you buy a newspaper, then you take it on. This is actually on Bloomberg as how Jared Kushner is going to execute matricide. What people don't understand is that Ivanka Trump was profiled by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, both of them Mossad. Ghislaine Maxwell was the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who is the most famous Zionist spy in the United States of America. So my bottom line on Jared Kushner is that he is known to be an Islamophobe. He is known to be an Israeli firster. He is known to have some very bad business deals, and he is known to his building by Qatar. In every possible way.
So he's compromised in every possible way. Now, they're just claims, Alex. But again, this is information that is important to see if these claims have any weight to them, because that's a pretty close, shall we say, thorn in the side to have. Because we're told that Trump is this maverick leader of a white hats thing, similar to what we've got in this country, because Farage seems to, you know, be with Trump a lot on this, Alex. So when we see these key figures, and, you know, that key figure has a lot to do with the Noahide laws going in that Middle East. And we've got the Middle East melting pot. We've got South America now as a melting pot. If you look at what countries don't have the central banking system, you know, these countries are getting less and less now. Venezuela was one, Iran's another. We're seeing that start to wobble now. And we're going to go in, the Americans, are going to go into Venezuela, and that central banking system is going to, you know, he's saying that the oil company is going to pay for much of the infrastructure to be repaired. You know, we're seeing it looks like a takeover to me, Alex. It doesn't matter what signs we put up, what flags we wave, it looks like a takeover. And to say that globalists have been defeated, you know, I shudder to use the term, but to say that they've been defeated when we still see that the possibility of these people being used, you know, it raises the questions. Trump was a very keen friend of Epstein. It doesn't matter how much we dress it down, but there's a reason that these people are with these people and photographed with these people. There's reasons for it. I saw a very interesting documentary just on old Hollywood between the 20s and the 60s. And you've got Rudolph Valentino, you've got Montgomery Clift, Cary Grant, Rock Hudson, Tony Curtis, all these people have written in their own private memoirs about what they did to get those roles, to be those darlings of Hollywood. And they had to be open. You know, Cary Grant was like, it was like an open secret that these men were virtually male prostitutes. They didn't get these acting jobs because of their skills or anything. They were open. Anthony Perkins, it was claimed that in his contract for Psycho, that he would be available to Hitchcock whenever he wanted him during that filming. Now, that to me is very interesting, because those people then are told to say certain things, wave certain flags, influence people. We're going back to that era. We're looking at YouTube now, we're looking at TikTok, we're seeing all these influencers. And the influencers are influencing everybody on an individual basis as well as a collective. So we've got all of these individuals who are collectively together, who all disagree, who all want certain rights. And we've got to a point where I can decide to be a cat. Now you've got to look after me then. Well, why are you playing on your PlayStation? Well, I'm not acting as my cat for an hour. You know, it's silly that we could even live in a world like that. But when you take away all these boundaries and all the thinking skills, because that's what the education system's done, it's taught kids how not to think, so they just don't bother. Now they can just scroll things. Well, if that information is wrong, Alex, we've discussed it so many times, if that information is wrong, then they're all going to be wrong. And it's the same with the hierarchy of the leadership through the religions and through the churches. All the religions have it wrong because they disagree with the Bible. The scriptures that most people who say they believe in God, they follow the scriptures. They might not be a Christian. And I shudder to use that term, Alex, because what is a Christian? If you're a Roman Catholic and you're following Roman Catholicism, I can't say, well, I'm a Christian because I don't follow that. I can't be dragged into these religions when they're disagreeing with the Bible and they agree on traditions and they're putting Christmas trees up and Halloween altars in the churches. You know, I've spoken to you about it many times, Alex, because personally, I don't care what other people feel about it, to be fair, and what they want to do. Personally, it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's a smack in God's face. You know, hey, I love you, God. I'll just put my Christmas tree up. Oh, I'm only joking. It's nothing. It's nothing really. You know, he's seen many, many people die, tortured, murdered, babies sacrificed through traditions that believed in similar cults through from that. So you've got Nimrod carrying a reindeer and a Christmas tree. Did they celebrate Christmas like we do? No. But is it the same energy? Well, I'd have to say yes. And that's why it's been so difficult for me. You know, my family understand that I don't believe in celebrating Christmas because of what it is. But the traditions that they say, they don't believe in stuff like that. What do? Isolate yourself? Do you not live peaceably? We had a conversation with a fellow who's a philosopher, didn't we, with Ray, and he said, well, what if there's a Christmas tree up in here now and you're not sat here doing that? Our point is we've got to go into these places and be able to at least speak with people on an even level, not tell them that we know something so much better, because that's not the case. I was exactly where we were. We had a conversation just before we come on here about somebody who is so lost and he's got so much anger, and you've seen it. You feel that compassion for him, because we've all been there. You know, we've all been through this lost. And why? Because we're born into a fallen world. Our parents were born into it. They were lied to. They lied to us. And if we don't look and ask the information, ask for the information. I don't care what you think of it. Give it me. Let me look. Then I can discern. If we don't all do that as individuals, that's why we end up in this Stockholm syndrome state of, well, it's going into virtual communism, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening, Paul. And it's unclear, I think, what most people will be able to do about it, because when you've got so much chaos everywhere. It's a disorientating tactic. Nobody, you know, it's fashionable now to talk about a post-truth world. I can see it. I probably wouldn't, in principle, think it definitively is a post-truth world, because I don't think you can get past truth. Ultimately, truth will win out. But I still know what people are driving at, because it's more about norms and standards, or things that we were able to have shared meanings about. They're all breaking down. They're all breaking down, so people don't know where they can place the weight. Now, I think that that's a classic example of where faith can work it in a really positive way. And ultimately, when you get to a situation like this, it's so difficult with the best will in the world, with the best research in the world, to know what's really going on. And so the question then is, if I can't really know what is the rock upon which I place my weight? And we come back to it time and time again. Words of Jesus in Matthew 7 about that, you know. So it's the word of God. But it's whoever hears these words of Jesus and puts them into practice will be like a man who builds his house upon a rock. So if you've not got that foundation, and the gales come and the wind and so on, and beat on the house, it's going to fall. So, you know, for me, that's the key. Through all this stuff, where are people going to find the foundations that they need to stand strong for everything that's coming? Because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, next week? Is there going to be a nuclear strike somewhere? You just don't know. Could be anything.
Well, I know many people who are still getting married and giving presents and stuff like that, mate. The world is just going on as normal. I don't even believe that the BBC, on mainstream TV anyway, BBC, Sky Mainstream, are even reporting what's actually going on in Iran. It's using some clips. It's not reporting what's happened during Christmas and New Year's celebrations all over Europe. I mean, Birmingham, if you've seen the videos from Birmingham where all you can say is there must be illegal immigrants, because there are the foreign people who are shooting fireworks at police officers. There's no countdown. There's no singing and dancing and stuff like that. It was the same in France, same in Belgium, same in Germany. A woman in Germany decided to go out New Year's Eve and do a live blog to demonstrate how safe it was, and she got stoned. I don't mean in a nice way. I mean, thrown stones at this woman.
Yeah.
And she still then in a blog said that it was down to just individual naughty men type thing. And you're like, it's been saturated on purpose with people who don't believe in Western values. You know, it's genocide. It's the very definition of genocide. If you're purposely changing a demograph that is going to weaken the ethnicities that are already there, that is the definition of genocide. And this is government policy. And what are we doing? We're putting flags up on lampposts. There's something else that we need to do. We need to be going into these courts and challenging them so we can stop the courts. We can show that the courts are fraudulent. We've got to lock it up somehow. Fighting against them is not the way. It's just not the way. When people are being arrested for what they're saying, what do you think they're going to do if you start picking up pitchforks? We've got to start using some common sense. And I just pray for a revival of this. I pray for a revival that people will say, look, enough's enough. Because I'm speaking to friends of ours, Muslims, who don't believe in what these Islamists are bringing over to all these other countries. It's got to be stopped, but we've got to be able to speak about it in order to stop it. And it's amazing that how many people would fight. You know, they fight against 10 men to protect somebody in the family. But somebody used that one word, racist, and that shuts you up. You just back off, you sit down, you fold your arms. You know, when people make those accusations in this world, that's where we end up. And we've got to be able to have that conversation. And if people aren't seeing what is going on, I mean, if we've seen what's happened in America, I mean, look at the Somalian thing. They opened a daycare. They got government funding of millions for this daycare centre. They had all these kids registered. And when people turned up, there was no employees, there was no kids. And then when they raided it, all the records had been stolen. So all the millions of funding and all the kids that were there, all the records have gone. We can't prove any kids. They've been stolen. And you're going, what? You've just got to say, it all went. And the police will just go, oh no, oh, never mind. But when they're investigating that, you've got Americans turning on those agents and saying they're racist. And you think this world just, can it get any worse? And we know that it's got to.
Yeah, it is going to get worse. I mean, we don't know the speed of the timing. But obviously, gold prices, silver prices have kept going up. There's going to be economic rumblings. There's these geopolitical shifts, invasion of Venezuela, the Israel thing. Yeah, it's a melting pot. It's a real melting pot. Some people think that what's going to happen really is that, China's going to take Taiwan, Russia's got the Ukraine precedent, and America.
Xi Jinping said it's inevitable, didn't he? It's inevitable that the war to work for World War III because they're going to take Taiwan. But is there a difference between the Americans running Venezuela and like the Venezuelans maybe welcoming him? Because, I did hear that it was the Venezuelans that handed Maduro over. Trump talks about the ones who are in exile, but he says that the woman who's in exile doesn't have the respect, so they'll run the country until the transition is done. But is there any difference between that and what Hitler did with Austria, where 99.9% near enough, 97% of people voted to become part of Germany? And, because they didn't like their leaders, they wanted to be part of all this new thing where, you've got a 3-bedroom semi-detached with a family car and you're going on Jet 2 holidays in the 1930s. So I think there's a lot of questions that have got to be asked. And we've got to ask what our governments are doing. Because if, Taylor's right about it being all over, there's a plan for us somewhere. So somebody's following a plan, but which plan are we following?
Yeah, I mean, what I suspect is going on. You remember the old templates and blueprints that they had for the New World Order, and that it was really going to be a world that was divided into regions rather than countries. And if you look at what the states were looking at one point, we're looking at co-opting Canada and Mexico. When Trudeau went, made you wonder. And now, Central America and South America, the northern part of South America, that looks a bit regional, like a regional expansion. Obviously, the USSR lost with the fall of the Berlin Wall and communism and the Eastern Bloc. They lost, like Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan and all these. They lost a load of the Soviet republics. So Ukraine could also now be seen as, I don't know, maybe Trump could have done it under cover of the Ukraine thing as expansionist, even though Putin's rationale is completely different. It could be used, and then China could say, hey, with Taiwan there. Yeah, well, America's done that. Tell you what, we'll turn a blind eye, we'll protest vehemently, but we'll let you do it. And then when we do Taiwan, you won't be able to go, hey, you can't be doing that. It's an invasion of it, because you just go pot kettle black, son. So I wonder if there's just been this realignment geopolitically of major powers, and instead of it being one, Trump et al. Have realised the West is in decline, so we're going to secure the Western Hemisphere as much as possible, because we know China's going to make its moves, Russia's going to make its moves, they might become blocks. This is why I think the EU is in such a difficult position on so many levels, because it's nondescript. It's made up of so many little small countries with so many little separate administrations. That's why they want a European superstate to become, you know, let's just call it, I don't know, maybe a fourth power, you know, if you could call it that. I mean, China, Russia, they're allies. Maybe India could come into that mix, but India was traditionally allied with us. But obviously, that's disappeared. We gave Hong Kong back to China, so we've lost that imperial weight. There's a new world, I suppose, which could incorporate.
We still paid for India. Didn't we pay for India to land on the moon, mate?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
I've seen the video. You know, it doesn't quite look as good as a BBC Electron.
No, it doesn't.
From the 80s, the graphics on it. But, you know, this is what I'm saying. That are we really nothing to do with these countries anymore, or is it all just on a page? Because you're right, if China won't say anything, so then when they go into Taiwan, America will go, oh, you can't do that, and they'll go, well, you did that. Well, Hitler went into Poland. Within 29 days, that country was his. It was his, you know, it was going to be run as part of Germany, but he made peace treaties straight away because he was going in with good reasons. Now, Trump has obviously gone in with good reasons. But if the Venezuelans have captured Maduro and handed him over, there's still people in there that obviously don't want that regime. Now, if you're changing a regime and you've got another country helping you, that country's going to want something for that. Venezuela's got a little bit of oil, hasn't it, Alex?
Yeah. You can see the background reasoning that could be in play. Join the dots. I think, you know, like with these countries, I don't think any country, realistically, if we're honest about it, when there's an invasion like that, I don't think any of these other countries care about Venezuela. I don't. I think it could just as easily be them doing that to a country. It's not the fact that they're doing it in some like ethically offensive way. It's the fact that people see such statements of aggression and expansion as something that could affect them next. So they don't want any power becoming too big in its expansion so that it's then going to have more resources, more power in order to be able to overcome everybody else. So what I can see happening is the world dividing into regions. And this is why Europe, and especially the UK, I mean, we're in a really tough position because we were the original imperial power and we've lost that power. Then we have this so-called special relationship with America. Yet we also want we also wanted to be a part of Europe. So it's like, which way do we jump to have any kind of significance? And it's like very difficult right now. Starmer's trying to walk this middle line, but move it a bit more towards Europe because he's thinking, because obviously he was a Blairite in some ways, not in others. And Blair was totally pro-Europe. And Blair made the case that you need an integrated European superstate because it was the only way it was going to be able to cope in the future as a genuine competitor, which means eroding nation-state identities and creating a bloc, a bit like the United States of Europe. And in that case, even languages can be a barrier because you want to maintain internal coherence. So it's almost like Britain is a really interesting example because we're an island. So in that sense, we're not attached to any other landmass, which means our allegiances are always with something that's radically other because of separation. So do we go with America? Do we go with Europe? Especially when they're massively polarized. Looks like we're going with Europe. But America is now moving away from conflict with Russia and saying, hey, oh, big power. We were losing power. China was rising up. We need to redraw the boundaries so that we can't have all the power. Project for the new American century isn't going to work. We're not going to have total spectrum dominance, but we can have local spectrum dominance. We can have regional spectrum dominance. And if we can know Ukraine as a pretext, because Vladimir won't be able to say much, because what can he say? He's invaded Ukraine for better or for worse. Xi won't be able to take Taiwan if he objects too much about Venezuela, so he can play this game and gradually just let these three powers expand. And then Europe has to decide what it's going to do. And it looks as if Starmer's throwing in his lots with Europe. So there would be 4 regional powers. I think that's
So
what's going on.
Do we see then that one of these powers is going to have control of the breadbasket of Europe? One of these superpowers is going to have control of most of the oil from everywhere. America being a massive amount of oil themselves. You're going to have another superpower that is going to have control of the place where all the microchips and the electronic stuff that we all need seems to be made.
Yeah.
What's the other superpower going to be controlling? The influx of migration that will delete all boundaries of where people would stand up for themselves, for the communities, and they'll just do as they're told under dictatorships, because that's the type of rule that they're used to. You know, once they've got that foothold, these countries will be run militarily, I would presume. And that seems to be what you were saying as Europe. I mean, it's interesting to see that when you see our politicians, so-called, being interviewed by American interviewers. I saw one on Tucker Carlson where he said that we were in Europe. And he said, well, you're not in Europe. He came out. He said, no, but we're in Europe. He went, you're not attached to Europe. You're an island. You're not attached to anything. You are just that group of islands that ruled the world at one time. What's happened?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to see how these things are starting to play out around the world, but I'm interested to see what comes here now, Alex. Where do we go from here? Because it was a bit perturbing to see what happened in Birmingham, where there were just people on New Year's Eve instead of celebrating anything. You know, I mean, we can debate whether we're actually going into a new year or we've still got to wait until March, April for the proper new year because of these changes in the times and the seasons and the Gregorian calendar as opposed to other calendars that we've had. All we know is what we've been told. In my 54 years, this is what I've been told. This is the real stuff. Well, I've found out there's a lot of lies in this real stuff. So we've got to be able to go back and ask questions. And when you can't ask questions and you call names, that should put up red flags. But if something's illegal to ask questions about, and then you're attacked because you're not compassionate enough or something like that, then you've got to have common sense. And that should be a normal kicker in of common sense. Even if you're scared to say anything or do anything, surely having that understanding has got to be there. But I see so many people who are blank. I had a conversation recently, somebody very close to me, and we talked about the gas, water and electric again, and she was adamant that she said, you've got to pay for it. The taxes can't pay for all that. I said, that's what the taxes pay for. You employ people to manage it for you. You're expected to balance those books, but we're not taught that. Well, you live your truth and I'll live mine. No, it's the truth, and it's not yours or mine to have. It's just the truth. This is a debt-based economy. We are creditors. We don't know how to act as creditors because we've been taught to act as debtors. Well, you live your values and I'll live mine. You can't go anywhere with that because that Stockholm syndrome is so encased. You know, I can't go against the rules. Well, it's the rules of this world, Alex. And if you cannot break these from the rules of this world, how can you survive? I couldn't. I didn't know how to break up free from this until 2017. It is done. That's what broke me. I'd seen all the lies of this world, but what do? There isn't anything. There isn't anything you can do. You know, I've seen police being. There was protesters around a prison where there's a hunger strike going on. The Palestine for action. So these people not eating is going to do something, save people. I don't know what the background or the mentality is behind it, but these are things that there's nothing that you can do about what's going on over there. You don't even know truly what's going on in there. I mean, if we ask Taylor, a lot of it is just, optical. It's not real. It's just what we're taught. It's what we're told in these things. That's not really going on because something else is happening. So we've got all this disinformation mixed in with all the other information, and there's truth in there somewhere. So if we don't take all the information in and take time to sift through it, then we are in danger of having not enough information to make good decisions on. And when you are taught to work hard and pay your bills, act as a debtor in a debt-based economy, you cannot survive as a society. But if we keep playing with inflation and making things up, we can create booms and busts for people until we've siphoned all the wealth from the people and we leave them with all the debt, and then we'll come in with the answer. But in the meantime, let's throw a load of third world ethnic people in who shit in the streets and eat cats and want to kill and change all our way of life. And I can't say that these are all Islamists, but these are all people who don't like our way of life. Well, why do you come here? It must be because we give you things, because you don't like us, you don't like the way we live, and you want to change it back to the shithole of where you come from. You want our country now to be like yours was at home. Well, why don't you go to another country and stay there like that? We can't have that conversation. That's racist. That is stupidity beyond, Alex.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I'm just going to bring you back. It's true. But as you mentioned, you've seen this. I haven't seen anything like it in these 54 years. I've got to wish you a happy birthday, Paul. And I'm not going to get everybody on the chat here to sing happy birthday to you because you won't be able to hear it because obviously they're not on the show. But happy birthday, young man. And you're 54 years. You rolled over recently. I'm not going to give the date away exactly, but you're looking good for 54, pal. And the thing is, what we need now is we need to understand what it is we can do about this. We can call it degeneracy from a moral point of view because we can see the degeneracy that's happening. But it's the degeneracy, yes, but it's just a degradation in general. Things are breaking down at every level. So internationally, geopolitically, within nation states, within communities, within families, the demographic mix is changing. The asylum thing is contributing to that with migration. And people are living in an increasingly uncertain world. And typically when people become uncertain to that degree, they destabilize. They can't rely on the institutions anymore. And I mean, the last one to go really is economic systems. And, then when economic systems go, you're talking about food shortages, various crises. And that's when the tire hits the road big time. Because then that's why a lot of people become preppers. So some people at that level now, and I know one or two preppers. You know him, Steve in Chapel. He's a prepper. So he's got provision. And I did a bit of prepping under COVID, but not like a proper prepper, you just get a few tins of butter beans stuff. Thought I'll be able to live for a year off butter beans and chickpeas if they don't turn the gas off. But so we've got to work out what we're going to do on an individual level to cope with the I suppose the disintegration of everything, all the meaning structures. And for those people who don't go down a faith perspective and don't become a prepper or start, I was thinking recently about the possibility of just migrating from this country. I've been talking to a few people, I looked at things in Eastern Europe, Poland, Bulgaria. I've heard many people talk favorably about Thailand. There's definitely problems, big problems in the West, big problems in Europe, massive problems in the UK. people are going to have to make decisions about how they want to configure the whole life. Like some people may emigrate, and it's debatable where you could go on this, terra firma to be free of this crap. I mean, I'm sure some people living in Venezuela weren't expecting that what happened in the small hours, and it's like, yeah. So where do you go? But people are going to have to start asking these questions.
With Ceausescu, it happened with Ceausescu. They didn't expect him swinging from a lamppost or anything that day.
Yeah, well, exactly. But on an individual level, I mean, what is it to be British? Well, you get expats all over the place. Some go to Spain, some emigrate to Australia and New Zealand, but they know better. They're embedded in Europe. Many people have gone. Well, people have gone to the Philippines that I've heard of recently, as well as Thailand. So yeah, ultimately, people are going to have to start asking these questions. I mean, a lot of people have started getting mobile homes, going no fixed aboard, living on canal boats, dropping out. People talk about it. Most people talk about going off grid. It's just talk. It's a fantasy. Some people are doing it, not just preppers, and they're learning how to live differently. And maybe they're the smart ones getting ahead of the game because, these structures are coming down. Now, if you didn't talk in spiritual terms, return of Christ, theological terms, you'd be saying, well, normally when something comes down like a civilization, it's got to come back up, eventually get rebuilt. Sometimes you enter into dark ages. A lot of knowledge can be lost. You can be set back a long way. Economic factors can be set back for 100 years or more. So if it was a normal thing with the fall of civilization, in itself, it would take a lot of resilience for people to survive that healthily. Obviously, if it's the end, if it's the full stop, and from our perspective, Jesus is back within a couple of years, then it's all bets are off. But if it's not in the meantime, we're just thinking, well, what can we do to stay afloat now? It's hard to make future plans as well, because where do you want to live? What do you want to commit to? Like you say, people marrying and giving marriage. The thing about that that's very significant is it's saying that there are people looking around at what's going on in the world and kind of, even though it's cataclysmic, which it will be before he returns, they're kind of going, oh yeah, I think I'll make a life commitment here.
I think most people are trying to just keep something normal. So yeah. I know people who've booked holidays for this year, and I know people who've booked holidays and weddings for next year. Now, I'm going to be called pessimistic or doom and gloom to say I don't know what's going to happen by March, April, May, June, July this year, never mind next year. I'm praying and hoping that we've got this revival coming, like what you were intimating there, that these things are out of our control. And somehow, Alex, it's about faith in what we can't see, because I've been studying Isaiah recently, and when it talks about Cyrus, God's servant, Cyrus wasn't even, he didn't even pray to God. He wasn't, Cyrus the Great did not believe in the God of the Bible, yet he's named hundreds of years before he even comes along and says, you want to go and build your temple? Go on, what do you need? And he gives him all that stuff. Remember again as well, Sodom and Gomorrah, if there was 50, 40, 30, if there's 10 people in that city, I won't destroy it because there's hope. Well, is there 10 people in this country? Is there 10 people in Venezuela? Is there 10 people in Iran? God wants all this to come back to him. All the bad's got to come back to him, but it's got to get really bad. And then at that point, Satan will be cast back into this earth. And when all that stuff kicks off, people are going to believe that they shouldn't be here because that's what they've been taught from one religion. People think that why can't they get up through the energies and raise the consciousness into a different phase and be stronger, be like gods? All this confusion is going to come, And then as that happens, that time's going to be cut short and Jesus will return. Is it too late at that point for anybody? You've got to call on him when, and that's all you've got to do is call on him. Call on him for that chance. So I don't know what else to say, because it's something that you can't convince people about, Alex. I could show me people who criticise the debt-based economy, the gas, water, and electric stuff. I can show them in .gov.uk legislation. It can be proved that's how it should be dealt with, how people should act. We've seen it in the courts, what has been recognised, what they fight against. We know there's massive amounts of criminal fraud going on through these courts, through these money laundering establishments. So I can prove that. But when you talk about the Bible, and then you talk about a spiritual experience that you had that made you go to that Bible, and then you're reading the Bible and you're saying, well, that's not what Catholicism says, and that's not what Church of England says, and that's not what Mormons and JW say. And then you go through all these other Christian religions, and they don't agree with the Word of God. And then you've got people who are telling you, yeah, well, we believe in the pre-trib. Well, where's that? Oh, well, it's there at this. I went, that's the last day. It says last day. And Jesus says immediately after those times, you will see the Son of Man. So immediately after that, I'm coming back. Yeah, that means he'll come before anything happens. And it's a secret. Shh. Every eye will see him. The sky will rip open. I'm pretty sure this doesn't sound too much like a secret. That's what it says in the Word. But your establishment, your church says that's not true. You've got this weird interpretation. You don't preach what's in the gospel, the stuff that you shouldn't do, the stuff that you should do, because there's conditions about it. Do you want to be the least? Do you want to be the most? It doesn't matter. You've got to have an understanding of what this word is, and you've got to at least start walking down this relationship path, because it's about you, Alex, and God. It's about me and God, and about every other individual. I've seen on one of the groups earlier today where somebody was asking that they thought that they want to start looking into Christianity, but they've been to some churches and it's all a bit overwhelming for them. And they don't know, and the people are saying, oh, you need to do an ABC course and do that. And I just went, open the Bible and ask the Holy Spirit to come and tell you the truth, and read it. Read it for yourself and see what comes to you here, and then ask the questions. Start building that relationship. It's only the same as what you would do as a medium. As a medium, you are clearing your mind and asking spirits to come in. If you see Holy Spirit, there's no other spirit that can be there other than the Holy Spirit, and that spark is within everybody. We've heard it so many times. The kingdom of God is within you, but that's why you need to read the Word, because it grows from the Word, and when it grows, that brings a lot of sorrow, because things that you did, you shouldn't do. It doesn't mean that you can't do them. It's just not always good for you.
Yeah.
Well,
when you've got a source, Paul, when you've got a source, you've got something to measure it against. That's why it's called the canon of Scripture. It's like a measuring rod. So when you've got sources, then you've got to ask, are these reliable sources? And if they're reliable sources, then you can measure life reliably according to that. And what do those sources do? Well, purportedly, they reveal truths. They reveal truths about things. And you can usually see that these things pan out, or they can be borne out. Like Jesus came out with a radical statement about, love your enemies. You've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I said, you love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father who's in heaven. I mean, what a radical statement. Flipping things absolutely on its head. And so your sources are absolutely vital as your building block. And it's true, not just with the Bible. It's true with every source. So let's just think about Q. At the end of the day, it's got to be borne out. So I could ask Taylor Like, well, all right, if the Q story is consistent, what do we make of Maduro?
That's a good point. Time to bring Taylor in, even though he said that he hasn't really got a lot to add to it yet because he's not been able to
All right.
dig into it. But you know, it's about information and speculation. So you know, it's only an opinion at the end of the day. You can only know what you know. But you know, based on the foundation, what you're working on, Taylor. Can you see what the aspects of it is? Can you weigh any of it up?
Well, first off, let me just say, Happy New Year to everybody.
And you, Taylor.
Yeah.
And you,
And also, I heard it's your birthday today. Is that true, Webby?
no, it's not. It was last week.
Oh well, still, happy birthday, man.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah. How old are you? 54.
I am.
Ah, very nice.
Over half a century in this hole.
He's a young
Yes.
chicken. He's a young chicken.
Ah, you're young compared to some other people. I mean, look at it that way. At least you're not one of these baby boomers that grew up on Woodstock and all that.
No, I certainly wasn't. I certainly wasn't.
Yeah,
So-
pretty much. But yeah, to answer your question, I've actually got an article on this. The reason why I said I didn't want to talk about it in the chat is because I was just like, I don't know, like, because I mean, first of all, I've heard so many mixed things about this, and I was having trouble coming up with my own thoughts on it because of just all the information that was going around. But after settling down a little bit and just looking at some stuff, I think I might have a more of a firm idea of what I truly think of the situation.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and read from this as a starting point, because after all, we have to always know what. For fuck's sakes, we have to always know what we're going for when it comes to looking at stuff. So obviously this is a big topic. Everyone's talking about it, both normies and the alternative media. So let's go ahead and get started here. New York Times, Maduro arrives in New York. Trump says U.S. will run Venezuela. New York Times, and toppling Maduro. Trump risks blowback from America first base. President Trump's pledge that the United States would run, quote unquote, Venezuela for an indefinite period, showing he is willing to enter foreign conflicts he once promised to end. Oh, and before I start reading this, I just want to mention to everyone, while I do have very mixed thoughts on, I have different theories about this event. What I will say definitively is there will not be any form of larger war or World War III, any of that nonsense. I've seen so many, quite frankly, I don't mean to sound like a dick, but so many idiots running around saying that, and it's just annoying because, you know, they keep falling for the same Charlie Brown kicking the ball thing again and again. So I just wanted
me and Alex call it rumors of wars, Taylor.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like I swear a lot of people just want it so bad, but like, come on now. But anyway, so continuing, as is usually the case, whenever the scriptwriters at Weta Productions take us down an unexpected and seemingly inexplicable path, the Charlie Kirk thing, for example, the Sunshine Patriots, that's just what we call are opening their umbrellas as black pill addicts start popping negativity tablets. This wagged the Maduro regime change in Venezuela instantly prompted several nasty emails and even a subscription cancellation from one deranged Karen who accused me of promoting the quote-unquote Zionist neocon Q psyop. No hard feelings here. They'll be back in due time. Obviously, this is not me. This is the person who wrote the article. Deciphering the purpose of the latest scene from Venezuela in quotes will require the passage of an undetermined amount of time, though the editorial board of the Anti-New York Times does lean towards one theory, which we'll discuss shortly. What's most essential to understand at this early junction is that, and pardon the redundant repetition here, but some of you guys apparently need constant reinforcement, and this is all in caps, we are watching a movie in which nothing is real or as it seems. Fake Trump, fake Melania, fake Hegseth, Rubio, Maduro, Netanyahu, arrests, trials, wars, Congress with a Q, Supreme Court, Federal Reserve, etc. So, what is there to get so bloody mad about when none of it is real? Does a rational person fling his popcorn at a movie screen and storm out of the theater because the unexpected behavior of one of the characters disappoints him? Let's close the umbrellas and get back to first principles. And by the way, I've actually seen people do that before on funny videos on YouTube, so it's not unheard of. For the 1,000th time, we are watching a movie. This is why I keep trying to tell people as well. So, what's the play here? Consensus theory of informed anons. The Q operation is preparing to I don't know why the hell 2 is written here twice. To expose the election theft of 2020 and other elections worldwide as well. A key element of which would be the Dominion and Smartmatic voting machines run by deep state connected Venezuelan companies. And I'm not sure if you guys knew about that, but we're going to get into that a little bit here. Dominion and Smartmatic are independent companies that split from each other in 2012. Smartmatic was later investigated by a U.S. Treasury Department committee due to its ties to Venezuela. In 2004, Smartmatic was selected by Venezuelan authorities for use in a contentious referendum that confirmed Hugo Chavez as president. The election is believed to have been tampered with, as the programmed algorithm appeared to manipulate the vote into favor Chavez. Before that election, the Venezuelan government investigated in a company linked to Smartmatic through its owners. In return, a Venezuelan government agency was given a 28% stake and a seat on the company's board. It is very interesting to note that in the immediate aftermath of Wagner Maduro, Trump's Truth Social page suddenly exploded with content related to election fraud of 2020. And it was only 6 weeks ago that Trump / quote-unquote Trump, for the first time, actually endorsed the quote-unquote conspiracy theory that Venezuela's leadership was controlling electronic voting software worldwide and caused its 2020 election defeat to quote-unquote Joe Biden. The Guardian from the UK reported on November 24th, 2025, so a couple of months ago, Trump's post came 2 days after the Guardian reported that Trump's Department of Justice has been exclusively interviewing conspiracists, I don't know how to pronounce that, who are pushing the idea that Venezuela controls voting companies and flips votes to the candidates it favors. Let's see where this goes. In the meantime, sit down and pass the popcorn indeed. I mean, for me, I'm going to pass the candy because I don't eat popcorn. But Trump hints support for fringe theory that Venezuela rigged 2020 election. Yeah, here's his Truth Social post. In a recent repost about computerized election fraud, Trump caps, the Venezuelan conspiracy theory was specifically referenced. And here's some photos. I like how he's putting his Oh yeah. For anyone wondering, this is not AI images. This is real. This is Maduro giving the thumbs up and Trump giving the thumbs up. There you go. I mean, obviously that doesn't tell you everything to know, but that's.
So is that saying that's not fake, but that's all part of the play? He's playing his role there.
Yes. And we might go over.
Sorry for interjecting, but what does that mean for Venezuela then? Because the people obviously think that Maduro's a naughty boy, and he's been handed over to Trump for them to come in. So what is the parties playing? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So I bet the best way to answer that would be to basically say that Venezuela, as we know, has been a huge part of the deep state's operations going back for some time. Just as I went over in the article with the voting machines and the companies that control the votes worldwide. Obviously, it's not just Venezuela, but that's one of the key places, along with Ukraine and Germany, that control the voting systems. And this also goes into collaboration with the drug, as I'm sure you know, with the drug industry, constantly because Venezuela was full of drug cartels. And I'm not sure if they're still around now. There's probably some remnants, but I doubt they're anywhere near the power that they were several years ago. But regardless, Venezuela has been a hotbed for the deep state going back decades. Hugo Chavez was he was somebody that was fighting back against the 9/11 mainstream theory going back when he first came into power, and he died under very mysterious circumstances. He's actually in the book called "Dig 'Em Up" that I've read on my channel. But regardless, there's just like Ukraine, Venezuela has been full of a bunch of how should we say it? Very deep-seated players going back decades. And I feel that when it comes to this current event, we have Maduro being the scapegoat, right? Because you need somebody to be the scapegoat of the bad guys, because otherwise people are going to be like, oh well, who's in charge? Who's the bad guy here? You know, because they think in very simplistic terms. Yeah. So you have Maduro taking.
Don't they normally look in the camera like that and twiddle a mustache and laugh?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But yes, so we have Maduro being the fall guy for this, just like how we have Trump looking like or Pam Bondi looking like that they may be the fall guys when it comes to the Epstein stuff. So basically, to sum it up, this whole thing really is about exposing, at least if you ask me, is about exposing the corruption that's been going on in Venezuela going back decades, not just for the drug cartels, but also for the election voting apparatus. Because just like the article I read from just mentioned, the 2020 election fraud has it exploded in terms of what's it called, mentions and conversation on Truth Social and Twitter over the last few days. And of course, we have the lead up to this, which was going back the last couple months. We've had a lot coming out about 2020 as well, proving that 2020 was a fraud. I mean, we already knew that, but obviously, this is for the normies. So, at the end of the day, if you ask me, that's what all this is about. It's about revealing to the public, after the fact, about the voting dominion corruption that's we've had in America for decades.
Well, what questions beg now then? Because you mentioned drug cartels quite a bit. Trump gave a warning to the Colombian president, and he said he's not worried. And he says, well, he needs to watch his ass because he keeps fucking about. And it was his words that. I'm only quoting what Trump said.
Yeah.
That was his exact quote in the first interview. And then when the Colombian president had responded, Trump was asked again. And he said, I stand by my original comment. Now, maybe it's not fighting talk, but it's saying you better watch yourself. You keep sending drugs to my house, I'm coming round. So again, the question is begged, what part of the plan is that? What part of the Colombian president, is he just going, oh no, I'm not scared? And Trump is going, oh yes, you are. Are we still playing that with him?
Well, remember, all of this is a movie at the end of the day. So all of this is all play acting, just like with Trump.
Hang on. You keep saying we're watching play actors, but all those people in those countries aren't all playing those roles, apart from the ones through ignorance of working hard and paying our bills, those type of roles. So it's going to affect those nations. What does this movie do with these nations? Where do we start to see these nations acting as a whole? Because we're seeing individual actors. What are we going to see? What is the what's the point to the acting, what they're doing? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So each country has its own role, because let's be real here, the deep state's incursion it's worldwide, really. So at the end of the day, each country, some more so than others, they have their own corruption that has to be exposed to the public, usually tackling different angles. So for Venezuela, it's drugs, and more importantly, the voting machine problem. For Colombia, it's also drugs. For China, it's a lot of the what's it called, the slave labor and the economic side of things. So each country has its role to play in this. And as far as um, actually, let me ask. I keep thinking, because Colombia is not in Asia, is it?
South America.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm thinking of a different country. My bad. But yeah. So I mean, South America has been a hotbed for a lot of this corruption going back decades. Because it's not just Venezuela; it's also Colombia, it's also Brazil, Mexico, etc. The South America has really been, along with places like Ukraine and Iran and other places, have been hotbeds for deep state activity. So each one of them has to be exposed in order for the public to understand, because that's the underlying theme of the whole movie, is exposing everything for the public to understand, to turn them into quote unquote conspiracy theorists.
Okay, so what is Maduro? What's happened to Maduro? What is that exposing? What part of that is exposing in Venezuela?
Like I said, if you have Maduro fall, which quote unquote fall, more than likely he and Trump are sitting in an island somewhere just laughing. But regardless, like I said about the voting dominion problem that was run out of Venezuela, as well as, of course, the drug cartels, of course. I suspect this will also be that, as far as the drug operations go, it will also be heavily linked to Mexico as well, because let's be real here, a lot of them came through Mexico. So I would, that's if you ask me, that's what all this is about. Just you have to expose this thing, because like 2020 is one of the big things that has to come out for people to really understand exactly just how corrupt the system actually is. So once all the pieces fall and the time is right to drop the ball, so to speak, that's when the big hitters start coming out. So we're getting to that point of 2020. Just like the so yeah, all of the different. Oh, let me say one more thing. All of these different storylines are all converging, just like because it's just like a movie. We have the Epstein drama, we have the 2020 problem, we even have the COVID thing constantly getting brought up. We have the Middle East problem, the immigration crisis, Israel. All of these storylines are converging into one spot.
Mega has asked in the chat, made a statement in the chat room, that Trump gave a full pardon to the ex-president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, for smuggling 400 tons of coke into the US. So is it he only wants to expose some drug cartels and he likes some? Does he make money off these? These are the questions that people ask. When I speak to people, when you bring in these points up, not just your points, when I'm bringing points up, they've got questions. And these are the questions that people ask. So again, we're going to go down that route of, well, they're just going to play, they're going to act in these roles. And because of the actions and the consequences of those actions, we're going to see the mud come up from the bottom of the pond, the scum come up. That's what you're saying, aren't you? So by acting these roles, the scum has got to come to the surface, and then they're going to hold them up and go, ha ha, we've got them. And people will be able to go, oh yeah, we see it. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. And of course, you have to have fall guys, because otherwise, people, like I said, like you and I know, people are very simplistic, and they think, oh, this one dude is the big bad. He has to go, and then everything will be fixed. The whole thing. That's
the point. That's the point. You've hit the nail on the head. People are simplistic. They want other people to deal with all these problems. So when they see a narrative of what's happening and then what we're going to do about it, even though they might be letting it happen, people will gravitate to those people who are going to come in as savior. That's why I've always said that this stuff is very dangerous, because what about the people in those countries that aren't playing a role? People like me, people like Alex, people like you, who are trying to understand all this. And then you turn to your parents who haven't got a clue and don't even care to want to know what's going on. I have family and friends like that. I have more people now asking questions, but they're only asking questions about one aspect. Well, that's no good because of all these other aspects. Have you got any take on this, Alex?
No, other than I just can't get away from this whole idea, when it gets expressed that none of it's real. I mean, it's an easy line to come out with, but I think the problem is what we actually mean when we say none of it's real is we're really saying things aren't as they appear to be. But that still begs the question, but what are things then? And if you just go, well, what it is, there's a nice operation going on behind the scenes that's going to lead to a happy ever after. That is like a statement of faith with no basis. A lot of people think Christians are asking for, faith claims on no basis, but actually there is a basis. It's there. It's stated. It can be read. It can be responded to. So I'd say you need to have more faith to believe in Q than you do to believe in Jesus Christ.
Did you have any? You were going to do some slides, Taylor. Have you done any slides?
At the moment, I've been what's it called? At the moment, at the moment, I don't really have that many slides, but
right.
What's it called? How should I put this? Yeah, I am not good with my words sometimes. So I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about a bit of another historical topic, and of course linking it to the modern day, which is of course the which one is it? The hold on. I'm sorry. I am brain farting right now. I've been so focused on this Maduro thing that honestly, like, I've lost track of like most of what I had in mind to talk about.
There's no worries. Just expand on what we've been talking about then, because as we did, we brought Putin in because Putin's associates are saying, well, we don't like you going into Venezuela. So then you lot will go, well, we don't like you going into Ukraine. Well, we could sort that out, couldn't we? We could start making peace over that. China, Taiwan, oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, well, you shouldn't do that. We've got all these plays going on, but it's not helping me to understand why New Year's Eve people are attacking police rather than celebrating New Year's Eve, whatever that is. It's strange when people wish me happy birthday and wish me happy New Year now. Because of my inquisitive nature, I understand that, birthdays, we're taught to celebrate them because that's what traditions are. But when we look back, especially if you look in scripture, you only get birthdays that have bad connotations to them. But there's obviously a great joy with them. But is it how we celebrate them? New Year, right? January, still in the dead of winter. There's no spring. There's nothing new. So we look at our calendar. We look at the calendar that's been changed. We look at who changed it. We look at what incentives they had to do that. It's the same incentives as they've got where you can just go and sit in that box with that old fella there, tell him what you've done, and he'll go, oh, you're right, just go and do 5 Hail Marys and you're okay. Don't worry about it. So that will stop you maybe reading your Bible that night. So we've got all these subtleties, and it's through everything. And we've got to be able to discern those subtleties. But so many people are still distracted by it yet because it's not physically right in front of them. And yet I walk through my town, I don't recognise it. Not only have the local council money laundered loads of unnecessary things like bike lanes that didn't need to be there, shutting the entire infrastructure. The main artery into the town were just non-existent because the shops lost business, because people couldn't get into town because of all the gridlock, because they decided to lock up major arteries. They're doing that on purpose. Wigan Council, every council's corrupt, but people are only just noticing how corrupt this council is. The people there just shut people down who have questions. We have local councillors who are fuming, go into the council chambers and they're shut down. I know how corrupt these courts and councils are. You can see it blatantly, but until that knock comes on those people's doors, they're not interested. And by the time the knock comes, a lot of the time, we get into the Martin Niemöller situation where it's too late. And I'm hoping that it's not going to be too late. So just bounce on those, Taylor. You don't worry about being articulate. Try not swear as much, because when you swear, you do lose people with information. But I can understand that. It's passion. I get it. But don't worry about, I mean, I could, from what you texted me, I could tell you were kind of worried about being put on the spot about Maduro. So I understand that you've now, because you knew we were going to talk about it, you've gone and flooded yourself with it, and you couldn't remember the structures, what you wanted to do. It doesn't matter, mate. This is a show where we're just sat in a room chatting. We can't act professional with the amount of technical issues that we have.
Let's be real here. I don't have the most professional setup. I mean, I'm literally sitting in my bedroom on my bed, so that's like, and I'm using my laptop mic. That's not exactly professional now, is it?
Well, that's why I'm trying to get this set up working. Seems to have been quite good tonight, so I'll just try and keep doing what I'm doing with it, because it makes it separate for me, because I don't want to be where I do my research and stuff like that. When I come in here, I want it so I can do my testimony, I can do my book, and I can do my podcast. So I'm coming somewhere that's different to try and do something, because I've got to try and find a way forward in this life. But when you end up sat in the eye of the storm, where everything's been stolen off you by corrupt and criminal figures within the establishment, within the court system, that's barristers, solicitors, judges, doesn't matter whether they knew or they didn't, they're all in joint enterprise and making profit from acting criminally. And it can be proven. But where do you prove that? Do we go to court? This is the point. They've got idiots, and that's not a derogatory term. You said you apologise for using the term. We're all idiots if we don't know what we're doing about something. So it's a legal term. If you don't understand law, you go to a solicitor because you're deemed an idiot. You don't understand this law. But when you go in there and you understand the law and you put that down in front of them and they decide to not act under it, that's where the fraud comes in. There's more and more people seeing that now. We have got people challenging courts, which will lock court systems up, which inevitably puts a stop, or should put a stop, on bailiffs and things like that. But people are getting round to that. I see people all over this country at the moment, and they've all got really good challenges. They've all got really good information, and they're all doing some excellent work. And the only thing that I see that's missing from all that is we waste too much energy arguing about wet ink signatures and seals on warrants when they're acting in a commercial jurisdiction that just needs a county court stamp. Land Registry told me that they can change title deeds with just a stamp. They don't need my signature to transfer anything. They only need a county court stamp. All property that's been registered there has been registered in a way that it can be presumed that it's being used, or at least can be used commercially. So if they then keep contacting that property and the proprietor, the Mr. Miss Mrs., they're acting in commerce, anybody who responds within that, they're acting within commerce. If you act as a private person, they don't recognise it and they just keep waiting for something to come. Then they'll start the motions. Then you'll turn up at court like we had 10, 15 years ago. I'm a man. I have no contract. It doesn't matter. You've turned up. Oh, you're not accepting it. Oh, he's not here. So we'll do it in absence. Turned up, so we'll find in his absence. We've seen it so many times. I know somebody turned up and there was an arrest warrant out for her, and she was in the court. But she wouldn't take the legal names. She wouldn't accept that. So they found that she not bothered turning up. Then they go and arrest her and they take her to the police station. She doesn't accept the name again. What do? They release her because there's nothing to hold them on while she sits there. But that woman's gone, that woman's been dragged over the coals, Alex. You know how much fight that she's done over it. And she's got that little victory, that little battle, that victory. We're not talking Stamford Bridge or anything like that, but we're talking about a little victory. We're talking about a guy winning in court where a judge says that liability order signed by the council has no standing. We've got those victories. We now need to start bringing that together. Somehow, wherever property's been registered, contacting them and changing that registration, I think, is one factor for me that I think could be something that will help bring all that together. But we're seeing all of us being taught to act within that system, and we all play our compartmentalized roles, and we're acting in it, and we don't know what we're doing. So when you're talking about actors who are doing all this with Country's Tailor, we're acting in roles that we don't know, but we think we do. You're doing the same. We've all been lied to, and we're all trying to put this information together. And not one man has got all the information to put all this stuff together. That's why we've got to put up with all that rubbish of the lies, the truth, and then the truth and the lies all mixed in with misinformation. And it's not easy, especially when you're doing a 40-hour week and you might have 2-3 kids and you're trying to take them to football practice, music or dancing or whatever it is you're all trying to do. Then you get home at night and what do? You just sit there on a computer and try and do everything? No. I wouldn't have been able to do that in the situation I was in before we'd split up. I was far too busy. There was not enough hours in the day, not enough money to be made. When all that changes and your life changes, you start to ask some simple questions. What have I done to get to this point? And it takes a lot of soul searching, because all the decisions that you have made in your life has got you where you're at. It doesn't matter who's done that, he's done that, she's done that, you've done this. One way or another, you didn't know enough, or you knew too much, or you did something. It doesn't matter, we all participate in this. And that's why it goes back to what you were saying, Alex, about having compassion for people who, like you've been mentioning about the damage to your property of somebody that you wouldn't expect to have done that. And you instead of getting angry and wanting to go and sue him or anything like that, you just said, how lost he is, because that's where we're all at. And that's why it's so upsetting when we do see people who are playing roles and looking like things are happening, and people are going, yes, he's done this for us, he's great, Trump's great, Farage will save us, Macron, get rid of him and get in, I can't remember her name, bring her in, she'll change everything. And, they've got all these ideas. Marine Le Pen and all that. And the Netherlands, you've got all these people in the melting pot. And all we've got to do is that Germany was a perfect example in the 20s and the 30s. Before Hitler got in, all those factions were trying to, all the rallies, the communists were trying to take over Germany back then. So you had all then the socialists rises up and they fight against each other. Those people who were doing that fighting believed in every single thing, every single word. They weren't acting, but they were being taught a role that you can't get out of, because we are beings that are farmed. We accept things from other people. You know, we just accept things. And when our parents taught us to do things, they've been here longer. They know what they're doing. They make sense. This is the best thing. I had prisoners who were absolutely shit scared about what the mum thought of them. I went, you're a career criminal. What do you mean you were worried about what your mum thinks? I said, what about when you've been robbing and taking drug dealers' monies and all the stuff off them and using it for yourself and selling it? He says, well, my mum always said, just let me know what you're doing, but don't get caught. So if you've been taught that that's okay to do, but just don't get caught, then you're pretty much going to just follow anybody and do anything. So that's why we look for good examples. That's why when people say, oh, Wayne Rooney, he's a role model, look at what he did. If he couldn't kick a ball, I'd have handed him a toilet roll because he had his cousins and his mates all on the same wing. And they all said if he couldn't have kicked a ball, he'd have been in jail with us. So we've got to ask questions about these role models. And if Trump's not this role model that we should be looking at, but instead he's an actor, who's given him that part? You know, we've got to be able to do that Russian doll, haven't we, Alex? And see where that goes.
Yeah.
Have you anything else to add to that, Taylor?
Well, at the end of the day,
I'll ask you this. I'm not sure whether you actually have many conversations with your parents, but what do they feel about what's going on with Trump? What is, you know, Trump's now going to run Venezuela, basically. What do they feel about that, or do they not feel anything?
I haven't heard him say anything about it. That specifically.
They've not said anything about it, but you don't speak to them about it, no?
No.
Oh, okay. That must be a difficult thing, that living in that house, to have so polarized opinions about things, mate.
Oh, that's just the start of it. Hey, okay. Let me just say this. Between you and me, and don't let this out, I fucking hate living with a passion.
You do what?
I said I fucking hate living here with a passion.
You want your own Wi-Fi, don't you? Should we start him a GoFundMe for his own Wi-Fi, mate?
You might need it. When you said he needs his own Wi-Fi, I thought you were going to say he needs his own Wi-Fi.
Well,
I mean that too, yeah.
I mean, it must be difficult, Taylor. I mean, how do you leave? What job do you go and get to get that money to pay those bills that you shouldn't be paying, to get that house that, you know, you're a creditor of, and yet you're going to be taught to not be able to own any of it. So I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult in this day and age. I mean, I don't know anybody who can just go out and, you know, it takes a lot to be able to get a mortgage and carry on paying it and pay all these bills now. It's so much more difficult. And as Alex said, I know people who are just getting these motorhomes now, and they're using them for jaunts, obviously, but they've got that just in case to fall back on. You know, I think it's, for me, I think to be a push come to shove. You know, I'm not one of those who want to jump straight away. I want to see what's going on. You know, I'd have been next to Jack on the back of the Titanic, holding the railings. But
oh my god, that cringy ass movie, bro!
I'd have had a couple of bottles of brandy for when I get in there, though. I'd have had a couple of bottles, and then I'll just follow it.
Hold on. Let me just
as it got under.
Let
me just talk about that real quick. You know the story about the head chef on the Titanic. He said to have survived a few hours in the ocean, and he said even though everyone in the ocean that was in the water died within like 15 minutes or so of being in there, and he said he survived for several hours out, and he said it was because I got really drunk and had a lot of liquor, even though supposedly liquor actually makes you easier to get hyperthermia. I'm like, bullshit. This story is so dumb.
I'll tell you what, you are urinating on a few testimonies there, you know, because there's people who have got absolutely leathered like that and survived cold weather because severe cold, because the body will insulate and shut down, but the blood will be that thin it still moves, so it stretches lifespan. So this is what I'm saying. You can't just jump on things, say that's bullshit. We go back to the Hitler thing. There's a lot of good information, but you're insistent that he died in that bunker. I'm not there. There's no conclusion for me that he died in that bunker because there's too many questions. And if you raise a doubt in court, not guilty. So you can't. This is what I'm saying about the information. You've got to give it as you've no opinion on it. If people ask you your opinion, you give them your opinion and you tell them why. But when you say that's bullshit, anybody who's read that and thought that could be plausible, what you're saying is you're a knobhead. You can't do that. We've had this conversation so many times. When you wanted to come on here tonight and play a video that was like half an hour or so, that's not good. That's not good for people who want to participate and ask questions and things like that. That's why it's so much better what you've done today. I know it was a bit off the cuff for you, Taylor, and I'm sorry if it's, if it discombobulated it a little bit, made you a bit anxious because you needed to go and look at this stuff because it's only just happened recently. So I'm sorry if you've been put on the spot with it, but your presentation about stuff, I can't argue with your research into the material that you research. But as Alex was saying earlier, that it's one-dimensional. If we got questions about it, your answer is it's all just a play, and that won't work out for people who critically think, because you might have it sorted in your mind. People haven't got that pathway for your mind. They're trying to beat the path of their walk and try and find other junctions that they might, like Bugs Bunny always shouldn't have taken that right turn at Albuquerque. Maybe he wanted to go left or something like that. So we've got to be able to ask these questions. So try and not present it as that's it. Try and present it as like, this is my opinion and this is why I base it on. But then you've got to say, but there are people who think this and this and that. But by urinating on what that has said, I mean, that testimony, there's been stories about not only the Titanic, all things that we could say, that's ridiculous. Some of the most ridiculous things have really turned out to be true. I mean, today there's a video from, it's supposed to be a hospital in Northern America somewhere, where this fella's broke out because he'd been in a motorbike accident and he was just a bit bruised and injured, but he'd heard them say that he'd been damaged beyond repair type thing, and they had this separate operating room with these hidden things, and they were organ harvesting. Now we've got the university in America, Harvard University. Part of that had a scandal of organs. And we in this country get told about brain death, but we've also got people who say that the brain death isn't true. You know, we've got people who have been in comas and come out of them and said, I heard you talking about that. So we've got all this stuff going on. Even now in Canada, a good friend of mine had a family relation who was going for, I don't know what the acronym stands for, maybe you might know it, Taylor, but it's called MAID, and it's the assisted suicide program. And his auntie's just had enough, she's in pain, and, my mate's a Christian, and that's like weighing so heavy on him right now, but it's been normalized. So that, again, with people go against that, but people will say, yeah, but it's pain, it's this. So there's always this. good and bad thing, and that's the same as what you're depicting with this movie that's playing out, Taylor. So I think you've done really well to come off on the bounce tonight. I mean, I thought you might struggle, but you don't need to panic about it, particularly not on this show, mate.
I mean, here's the thing: is that when I try to, the thing is that when I give information out, I want to make sure that I've double checked and done everything first. I don't, because otherwise I don't feel confident in stating certain things. If I don't like, here's the thing: if I don't feel confident that information is correct, I don't feel like it's right for me to go and tell others that this is correct, or that this is believable, because at the end of the day, it's like, you got to double check and everything, of course, first. So at the end of the day, when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's just like, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say I panic necessarily. I mean, what's the point of panicking? That's not going to do anything. But I do want to at least look as credible as I possibly can to the audience, so that way they don't just think I'm sitting here talking a load of nonsense.
That's why we've got to corroborate information, and you can't just make a statement and say, that's true, go and research it. It doesn't work with people. If somebody just said that to me, Taylor, I'd have walked.
What I'd add to that is, just to tease that out a bit further, is there's a very important distinction between information and logic. With information, straight away you can say one man's meat is another man's poison. So even what information isn't clear, right? But let's just say there was something called information, and we all present from our own perspective. But you've got to build a case. You don't build a case with information. Information can support your case, but you build a case with logic, which means there has to be an internal, defensible, and coherent case logic being demonstrated, because people follow logic. The reason now that it's harder than ever is because people don't trust information, because people present information within a frame. So if you'd seen 9/11 happen in a movie theatre, you'd have thought it was celluloid. But if you see it on a newsreel that claims to go out on CNN or MSNBC or whatever, then you think it's real because the context is so-called factual. So information is tainted by context, which means people don't trust information because it's skewed. So weapons of mass destruction, Saddam Hussein, so-called 45-minute launch that Saddam could make, and his missiles could hit the UK. It was lifted from some bogus PhD thesis and presented as if it was factual and used as a pretext. So there's a source, but the source is made obscure. It purports to present information, and that information, just by virtue of being presented, was considered to be enough to justify certain actions and to be believed. But no case was made other than, well, this is information, we're just taking it at face value, and on that basis, we're going to invade Iraq. And it was all made up. Now, when you've got power and privilege, you can do that and just do it anyway. Say, well, that was a conclusion we came to, and we acted on this information. Problem, reaction, solution, as we hear about a lot of the time, that came from Ike. And they've got the power to do that. But we don't have that power. We don't have the power to act upon that and just make a claim and then do what we want anyway based on that claim. But we have to back it up a lot more rigorously. And therefore, we can't just give information because it's highly context sensitive, and we've got to use logic to build a case. So if you don't use logic to build a case, you're asking people to make leaps of faith all the time. And then what that reduces to is, I've got to believe it because Taylor said it. And that's what
we don't want.
No one's really ever going to buy into that with any sort of confidence. Even if they like you, even if they like quite a few of your ideas, they're probably not going to accept everything you say just on that basis. So it's always about making the case with logic. Each specific point as well. So, for example, you might say, and you've said in the past, Taylor, and I agree with you, that the critic needs to learn to read between the lines. Yeah. And it's about the ability to recognize patterns. That's all true. But just stating that is one thing, because that's a statement of method. You still got to use the method in each specific instance where you're building the case, because when you're building a case, you're also then selling it to get buy-in from people. And the people will only buy in when they, first of all, recognize the logic, and then two, they're persuaded by the logic. They're not just going to accept information dumps and go, well, I like the source. Because that's the problem with mainstream media. Mainstream media relied on precisely that. This is the truth. We're just presenting it. You just got to believe it because we said so. And people don't believe that anymore either. So it's about digging deeper.
Look into the eyes, not around the eyes, look into the eyes. That's what they're doing with the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're coming to the last 10 minutes of the show, Taylor. So do you want to wrap up, give your stuff out for where people can find you and contact you, and send you questions as well? Because I know Megasaurus keeps asking these questions and we put them up, and he doesn't like that you don't go into the answers. But again, you've answered a lot in shows that have gone that maybe he hasn't seen. But maybe you can put a collection of questions and email you, and you can go through them at your leisure at some point and email them back to him.
Yeah, so, that's fine. I can do that.
Give us your stuff, mate. What you normally do.
Yep. Okay. So first of all, my email is chimpyskippy@gmail.com. chimpyskippy@gmail.com. If you want,
all lowercase.
What? All lowercase, yes. So if you ever want to message me or ask me any questions, message me for any reason, really, go ahead and do that. That's fine. I'll pretty much always respond. As for what's it called? My other stuff, I have my Rumble channel, WEBSTER Report, which I actually just yesterday I uploaded part 2 of the God versus Darwin audiobook. This book is about debunking the myth of evolution and Darwin's nonsensical work, and not from a faith-based perspective, but from a purely logical and scientific-based perspective, because obviously people have different ideas of faith. So just wanted to throw that out there. But I also have my YouTube channel, WEBSTER Report, but I don't have anything really uploaded on there right now because I'm kind of thinking, like, I don't know what I want to upload that hopefully won't get freaking tagged down by YouTube, because I've lost many accounts on YouTube, and it's getting difficult for me to keep making accounts because every time I do, I can only use the same phone number so many times before YouTube just starts saying, nope, you can't use that phone number no more. So it's tough out here. I've also got I should also mention, I haven't mentioned this one before. I do have a BitChute page, which I have uploaded a lot of Jason's old shows onto. I haven't finished uploading them all yet. I've been kind of lazy on that. And I've been doing that just mainly because in case something happens to the YouTube channel.
Well, you should be able to post them, not in the live chat, but you should be able to post them in the comments underneath this video. So post these links to
I can't do that.
Why?
YouTube doesn't let you post links.
I've posted links.
Well, because you're the owner of the channel. That's why.
No, I've posted links on other people's. It's only if they say don't post them, and I haven't said you can't post them.
No. Well, what happens is that you post them, but what happens is that nobody else can see them. That's what happens every time I try to post a link to anything. So
well, I've always been able to. Well, okay, you'll have to put them in the chat, and then I can post them for you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Like I keep saying, Taylor, if you're not posting them anywhere, you're not even putting them on our page, then nobody's going to go and look at them. So you're going to have to make a decision at some point to either find some kind of a social media platform that you can actually make contact and spread some information, because at the moment you're in your own echo chamber. Well, you said you didn't. You don't get anybody watching your channel, you said.
Well, here's the thing: is that I have a Twitter account, but of course nobody follows it. I have mentioned it before. Maybe I might not. Maybe people don't remember, but I do have a Twitter account. I can show it on the screen real quick for anyone who wants to see. It's called Raconteurs Report. I will share it right now on the screen so people can see it, and I'll post it in the is it called, in the Facebook group that we're in, and so you can post it. So here's right here. This is my Twitter page. I have 35 followers, but which is nice, but I never hear anything from them, and my posts never get any views, unfortunately, or any comments. So if you could follow me on there, I would really appreciate it. And I will make one more reference to people to check out. Go check out Mike King's work as well. Go check out on Rumble. Also check out News Treason and Patriot Underground. They do really good stuff right here. Some really good shows, D-Class, breakdowns, all that stuff, talking about different things with the Q operation, also child sex trafficking, all that. So got some good stuff here. So I'll just show all this for you guys, and I don't want to take too long from you guys. So wait, can you show on the screen my page? There we go. So this is it right here. This is my Twitter page. Just for anyone who needs to see it. This is a good Twitter page right here as well. Take a look. Definitely take a look at that. It's called New Treason Channel 17. But with that, I don't want to take too much of your guys' time because I know that we're almost at 2:00. So, I guess that's pretty much it. Let me just mention. By the way, I'll just mention this real quick. I noticed that Megasaur and put in the chat about Nate Rothschild messaging, tagging Trump about the Venezuela thing. And well, here's the thing: we know that Rothschild is out of the picture. So at the end of the day, is it his persona? Is it a ghost account? We don't know, but we know for a fact the Rothschilds are gone. So at the end of the day, it's like, and there's that's a whole different conversation to get into. But just a quick answer: that's not Rothschild. We'll just put it like that.
No worries, pal. Well, put your stuff in the chat page, in the chat group, and I'll post them on our platforms as well. I mean, our platforms are quite shadow banned, but Mega asked about just people still use Facebook. I wouldn't be on Facebook if I didn't have the connections to the people that I have got because of the information that flows through it. But I'm never sure on what people see my stuff, and we just do what we do and see what we see. Even if it only makes me feel better, at least I feel like I've done something by giving information out there. At the end of the day, I've only ever used it as a news page. I rarely tell people I've had for tea and things like that. It's normally always been, have a look at this, ask these questions, and people don't want to bother asking those questions until they really need to, and that's usually in the Martin Niemöller phase of things. But thanks for coming on, Taylor, and sharing your information and giving up your time for us. It's much appreciated, and we'll see you next week, mate.
Yep, no problem. I'll see you guys all next time.
Okay, doke. Night, God bless.
Yep, God bless.
So, in wrapping up, sir.
Yeah, well, I think we talk about different things every week. Some of it's topical, so that's fresh. Other things we repeat. So it's a tough one at times to know how to sum up. But I think when you've had an event like you had that's going to put the cat amongst the pigeons with this Venezuela thing, it really stirs the pot, and we've got to try and understand as best we can what the framing is of the world we're living in. We need to understand the global picture in terms of what's going on internationally, if possible. We also need to understand what's going on in our own nation states, like so in central government. We need to understand what's going on in our localities. We ourselves have attended and usually occasionally speak at community assembly type meetings. So we've also got at the regional and local levels, we've got to understand what's going on in the world and what type of strategies we need to succeed and build resistance in the world. And it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming when things are so confusing. At the meta narrative, the grand narrative level, we can feel really disempowered. And we've got to find a way, I think, this, we come back to it every week. Even whether you use or draw upon faith or not, we've got to find a way of being able to live successfully in this life. You're born and at some point you die, and that's true of everybody. This morning I got up and it was a bit cold, my car didn't start, but I ended up going out. Friend Ray contacted me. He picked me up in his car, so that was all right. We went down to the chapel in Darwin and we had a brekkie. Then we went for a walk. We walked around Entwistle Reservoir, and it was lovely. It was a bit chilly. We were wrapped up. Beautiful scenery, fantastic sunny day. And at the end of the day, even simple things like exercise, like when you start to feel, I don't know, oppressed or physically weary, sometimes just getting out and about makes a world of difference. And that tells you that your mood, the way you feel about life, you can get daunted, you can get overwhelmed, everything can seem like it's too much. There's constant barrage of negative framing in the world. But you still, when you get up every day, you've got choices to make. And if you get your head in a certain space where you think nothing's worth it, it's all going to pot anyway, you won't get out of bed. You won't do the things you need to do to stay healthy and balanced in yourself. You won't have any motivation. You won't cultivate faith. You won't develop hope. At the end of the day, the strongest thing that all of us can do is maintain that inner discipline, that flame, that conviction that there's a reason to get out of bed in the morning, live your life. And I think there's so much better reason for doing so when you see that the big picture that we think we see, there's a much bigger picture outside of that. There's a bunch of big battles going on in spiritual realms that get played out on this earth. And if we just stop at the level of looking at international power and the power that the state has to crush people and destroy their lives, you would get depressed. So where is the king? You think about Zionism, we talk about Jews a lot and Zionism and all. Zion really is all about a king on the throne of Israel in the Davidic line. That's all Zionism is. At the moment, Israel's got a president, prime minister, and so on. They don't have a king. But realistically, Zionism is about having a king in the Davidic line. But we know that's Messiah. But nation states persist, secular ideologies persist. Who is the king? And that's the issue for all of us who, in the truth movement, sometimes we talk about sovereignty. Well, who's the sovereign? Sovereign is the king. Who's your king? Who do you bow down to? Who do you acknowledge? Where's your allegiance? At the end of the day, you can do your bit, try and stay healthy, but you need to have an allegiance. And the question is, as always, where does your allegiance lie? We know where ours lies, mate.
Time to pick a side. Many of us have already picked sides, even if we picked a side. You've already picked a side. Thanks to everybody in the chat room who stayed with us to this point. Thank you for everybody who's watching this show after the fact. And again, hope that we've just brought some information to you that will make you question things. There's a lot of contention with what Taylor brings to the table. Well, that's what it's here for, because Taylor's not on his own in believing what he believes, but there's no point just keep slaughtering him over it. He's got to find his own way. He needs to educate himself as much as what we need to educate ourselves, and that means information. As you know, Alex, just getting information doesn't always do that. You've got to give it into a context, but you present it as a buffet. But look what you really like. This is what I really like. These are the main courses here. You know, oh, them vol-au-vents, well, we don't know about the vol-au-vents yet. They may just fit in. We don't know. But that's what we're trying to do, I suppose. But again, as we've come through the pagan festivities now, and we're looking forward to the new year and whatever's coming down this pipeline. But we see the actors and the roles are moving. We've just got to be concerned on the intimate roles that we've got to now play with our interaction with this energetic field.
Yeah.
It's from spirit. Now, the spirits going to control you? Are you going to be tossed to and fro on this sea of emotions, or are you going to pour oil on these waters and see the calmness, see through the storm, and let's see if we can move forward together.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot again, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Night, God bless.